All right, it was day 2 of SEC Media Days today, which means we heard from Kirby Smart, who had a lot to say about his Georgia Bulldog football team. And we also heard a lot from Nick Saban, who is an analyst now with, ESPN, SEC Network. And of course, he had a lot to say about Kirby Smart and the Dawgs as well, and be talking about his comments about Kirby Smart and the relationship that those two have. It's always good to see them on the same stage, right, in this type of environment. There's so much respect for each other. So much, in fact, that Nick Saban even said Kirby Smart is the best assistant coach I ever had, especially on defense. We've talked a lot in the past about how you can't talk about that early Alabama run, those first few national titles, without talking about Kirby Smart, what he meant to that program, what he meant to that defense, and him turning Georgia around, right? He is going to go down as a college football Hall of Famer, and a lot of people think that more national titles are on the way, but there's a lot of respect for Kirby Smart and the Dawgs from Nick Saban. And I'm going to talk more about these comments, but the first one that caught my eye, or I guess the second one, was talking along the recruiting avenue. He said the opportunity to play early at Georgia, like Alabama, is much better than people think. The roster turns over quickly, so guys have more opportunities early on. And I've talked a lot about it. I cover recruiting, so that definitely stood out to me. There's a lot of negative recruiting going on by other SEC coaches, other coaches across the country telling these big-time prospects, hey, you're not going to play early at Georgia, okay? They are deep, top to bottom. You're going to have to wait your turn. Come play for us. You can play a little earlier. And Kirby Smart made a quick emphasis on that. I say emphasis, that's probably not the right term, but he was talking about Malachi Starks, one of the players who was there in Dallas, and he said, hey, everyone, I brought Malachi Starks here, superstar safety, and he played day 1. He was a starter of the 2022 season as a true freshman, made a big interception, and he has started every game since and has become a leader on this team. So you can come to Georgia and play early. And after he left the podium, they brought Nick Saban in, and he came to Kirby Smart's back. He said, hey, I totally get that. I had the same thing going on at Alabama. Everyone was telling these 5 stars, who Alabama would end up landing most of them anyway, that they wouldn't play early at Alabama and at Georgia. And Nick Saban's like, no, dude, they turn over quickly. A lot of these guys are 3 and outs. If they're not playing, they can transfer. But the notion that you can't play early at Georgia or Alabama, in his case, is not really true. And we saw it last year. If you're a tight end, you can play early at Georgia. Brock Bowers was a superstar as a true freshman. We saw Oscar Dell play a lot in 2022. Of course, Malachi Starks started day 1 in the secondary. That's not ideal, but it happened. We saw C.J. Allen. He was next man up when Jamon Dumas-Johnson got hurt last year. He started the last 5 games as a true freshman. Raylan Wilson started as a true freshman against Florida State, right? So, it's tough to play early at wide receiver, on the offensive line, and at quarterback, right? But there are definitely positions where you can play early. I want to continue talking about, Nick Saban's comments. He also said Georgia's second advantage is player development. When you're practicing against the best players in practice, your development is going to get enhanced. And he's basically talking about his own team while talking about Georgia, because that's how it was at Alabama. When you recruit at an elite level, and I know this because I covered Georgia recruiting and have for almost 10 years now, when you bring in so much talent year after year after year, you start practicing against the best, and that makes your team better. He went on to say that a lot of the guys that you practice against every day are better than the guys that you're going to play against on Saturday. And he knows that from Alabama, and he knows that's what Kirby Smart is doing at Georgia. And he was talking about the advantages and that Kirby has and how he's been able to take Georgia to this level of success where they've won 2 out of 3 national championships. He said, when you bring in players that are good, they make everyone else better. He also said, talking about Georgia's defense, he said, they have a good system and they have a good scheme. They adapt well to different offenses. It's simple, the players can execute, and they make things difficult for offenses. And then he goes on to talk about the question marks, right? Because no team is perfect, right? Going into the season. He said, my only concern is, do they have enough playmakers up front? They have big guys who can play gap assignment and hold the point. They're not going to get pushed around, but can they rush the passer and create negative plays with people up front? And they've got guys, right? But they went on to talk about the rest of the analysts, Benjamin Watson, the old Vanderbilt quarterback, blanking on his name, Jordan Rogers. They were talking about how, James Pierce at Tennessee had 10 plus sacks. Guys at Georgia aren't getting those double-digit sack numbers, but they're still creating havoc. And Michael Williams is going to be better this year than he was last year. Jalen Walker, I think, led the team in sacks last year. Maybe came close as a freshman, but I think last year he had 6, which led the team. That's not an eye-opening number, but they are getting in the backfield, and they played a lot of mobile quarterbacks. They actually sacked Jalen Milroe quite a bit, but he got sacked a lot. He would run into some sacks here and there because he knows he is explosive and can make plays with his feet. It just doesn't always work out for him. But Georgia's got guys, Gabe Harris, Damon Wilson. There's a lot of guys. And I think he was talking mainly about the interior guys, the Warren Brinsons, the Jordan Halls, the Nazir Stackhouses, Kristen Miller. I think he's talking more about those guys. Can they, as good as they are against the run, can they affect the quarterback too from the inside? Because Georgia has edge guys who are only going to be better next year. And I expect Georgia to record more sacks than they did last year. But that was something that Nick Saban said, okay, if there's one question mark on Georgia's defense, can they get pressure with the guys up front? He said yesterday, talking about Alabama, that he's got concerns about their secondary, especially at cornerback. And Kirby Smart said that too. He said we are not very deep in the secondary. And there's a couple guys that he mentioned I'm going to make another video about, probably going to write a story about, of guys who have an opportunity to step up and play a good bit. He talked about the linebacker play. I'm talking about Nick Saban's comments still. He said, linebackers, they've got the instincts, play recognition, how they make the players around them better. College football today, you have to have guys play in space, and Georgia has those types of guys. So he was very complimentary about Kirby Smart and the Georgia program, and it's hard not to. Again, they're going to be one of the best teams in the country year after year after year because Kirby Smart is there, and because, of course, Kirby Smart learned a lot from Nick Saban. I mean, they coached very closely together. Nick Saban is obviously a defensive guru. He's a defensive coach, but so is Kirby Smart. And Kirby learned a lot from Nick Saban, not only about how to recruit the right way, but how to develop your players, how to scheme, how to put guys in the best position to make plays. And Kirby talked about that too. You have to get your guys ready, but you have to make them versatile. Nick Saban went on to talk about, simulated pressure, right? Thinking one guy is blitzing off the edge, the quarterback, hikes the ball, and that guy goes to play zone, and then another guy who we thought was going to be in coverage comes and attacks him. It feels like there's 7 guys rushing when there's really only 4, and then you throw it into a zone where you think should be open, and there's a guy right there. And Nick Saban went on to say that they do a great job of simulating pressure and just making things difficult for different offenses. And he said Georgia has the ability to adapt to offenses too. They've got guys who can, again, play in space, who can cover and can attack the quarterback. And, he knows exactly what he's doing because he knows that Kirby Smart learned from him, and he knows how to build a program, and so does Kirby Smart. So, and it was fun to see them joke around. They made some golf jokes. They made some jokes about being credentialed or not. But Nick Saban did have a lot to say about Kirby Smart. And again, the one that stood out to me outside of the recruiting quote, because they both were like, no, that's wrong, right? Everyone talking about how you can't come in and play early at Alabama or Georgia. It's just not true, and it happens more than you realize. And Kirby Smart's going to use that on the recruiting trail too. He is tired of other coaches saying, hey, you are not going to play early at Georgia. I mean, again, if it's an offensive lineman, he's got to say, yeah, you're not going to play early here. Quarterback, they're not starting a true freshman at quarterback anytime soon. Probably not a sophomore anytime soon. And receiver, that's an area where they can always go to the portal and get guys, right? But we saw George Pickens play a lot as a true freshman. We saw Dylan Bell make an impact as a true freshman at wide receiver. So it still can happen there. But Nick Saban definitely had Kirby Smart's back there. But saying it out loud, he's the best assistant coach we've ever had. And then he went on to say, especially on defense, because he knows Lane Kiffin is watching. He knows Billy Napier, who's a grad assistant there, is watching too. So he made sure the quote was correct. But so much respect for those two programs, and No, Nick Saban knows that Kirby Smart is the top dog. He's the top coach of college football right now, and he had to kind of give him his flowers today, and rightfully so. So a lot of good comments. You can read all of this over on Dawg Post. But real quick, if you haven't got your Bulldog yet from collegebronze.com, now is the time to do it. It's the best looking Bulldog statue on the market. You can get a discount today. Promo code Dawg Post. DAWGPOST. All the information is in the description below in this video. Get yours today so you have it for the football season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over on the website.